You're listening to Dumpster Diving with
Janice.
and Jane. And
Hi.
hi, it feels like we haven't seen each other in a couple weeks, but I feel that that's true as
I
well.
think it's true, and I feel like our five listeners are going to get pissed if we don't start producing because they're waiting. And the truth is, like our stepmom episode, it's been live, but I just finally posted about it yesterday, like 3 weeks after Mother's Day, and I feel like people are going to get really disgruntled.
True
So,
shitty mother fashion.
oh,
3 weeks.
100%. 100%, 3 weeks later. So, but yes, we haven't seen each other. I have a little this disability this morning, so I'm gonna see like how well I do. But I how you sleep. Like I felt like I slept on my back wrong, and then I worked out, and now it's like that might not have been a good idea because now I'm like, whoa, getting up is gonna be challenging. Maybe I'll just stay here all day.
Yeah.
I'll just sit in
Well,
this chair.
they say that when you do, have a thing like that to stretch and to still exercise because,
I
you
know.
whatever, but you know, what were you doing yesterday? Were you gardening, yard work?
No, I wasn't. That's the thing. Like I didn't, we've been out of town. So we were on the East Coast from last Tuesday until Saturday. And it's for the record, everyone, Memorial Day. Happy Memorial Day,
Yes, happy
everybody.
Memorial Day. Here we
I
are
was
on holiday.
on a holiday, although I was hesitant to say it because we might not post this for a month. So no,
Well,
getting posted immediately.
Jay, but we're doing this on the holiday. We're
That's
recording
true.
on the actual holiday.
That's true.
My
And so that's
choice.
how much we care about people. So anywho, so I wasn't like, yeah, I didn't yesterday was low key. It wasn't, I don't know, it's just one of those weird, stupid,
Weird.
stupid things. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's like we were talking right before we hopped on, like at our age, like any sudden movement can
Yeah.
be the movement that jerks you out of,
Oh, I
you know.
know. I
Yeah.
know. Like I have issues with sciatica all the time, especially on my right side. And it
Yeah.
really started when I got pregnant with my youngest daughter, Jenny. And she was my biggest baby. I only gained 10 pounds pregnant with her.
She's so tiny. How is she
She
your biggest baby?
she was 9 pounds 1 ounce.
Damn.
And I gained 10 pounds when I was pregnant with her. So 90% of it was baby.
Wow.
Yeah, that's it. And so, but she was sunny side up. So her back was along my back.
Nice. Right.
And within, I think in my 7th month of pregnancy, I lost all feeling in my leg. So I could walk, but it would go out on me and I couldn't lift
Oh
it.
God.
Yeah, so I had to like pull my pant leg and pull my leg into the car, and I pretty much lost function of it because she was
Yeah.
hitting on that nerve. And so ever since then, I've had so
Thanks,
many
Jenny.
problems with my sciatica. And so like we were talking earlier, like literally the first time I threw out my back, you guys, I was doing some tough work. I was doing Jenny's, and we were in the bathroom. We were in the bathroom, and there's a hair tie, just like this, little, maybe not even a gram, like
Yeah.
not even an ounce. And it was like 3 feet away on the counter, and we had this long counter. So instead of like taking a step and reaching, I just stood in one place and reached. And as I was coming back, I felt this like tweak in my butt, my lower,
Uh,
and that was it. Like I threw out my back picking up something. Like it's no joke. Once you've had something
that's
irritated,
it.
you're done. You're
That's
done.
it. That's exactly right. And I,
Oh
for the
gosh.
first time a couple months ago, started seeing a chiropractor because for the first time really ever had a thing with my lower back, right? Same
Uh,
side. So I'm sure it's all connected. Um, and gained a much greater understanding of like how all the pieces fit together and all the things, and that has been working gloriously for me. And probably the issue is that the last time I saw her we were like, I think we're good, but you know what, come back in a month, let's just check it. So I'm not going back to her for like 3 more weeks, and of course now I'm sitting here going, I don't know if I can get out of this chair.
right.
So but it also could be a racket. It could be like a chiropractor racket. Like she could have done something to me to make sure I needed her again. Chiropractors, if you disagree, comment below and let us know.
Yeah. Maybe we should start an investigation.
I feel like we should. I feel like we should. All right, new topic. I love your hair. I
Oh,
so infrequently get to see your hair down. It's quite lovely.
yeah, I flat ironed it the other day, so it's like
Oh,
nice dirty,
okay. How long does it last when you flat iron it?
As long as I don't get it wet. So
Okay, gotcha. So you haven't washed your hair in a month. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, right.
Nice. Good to
No,
know.
I wash my hair once a week. And
Yeah,
so
about me.
yeah, I washed it on Thursday. So I'll probably leave it straight until Tuesday because Tuesday we have softball.
Nice. Uh,
I'm sweaty and gross. I'm washing my hair.
oh yeah, you're gonna have to wash your hair. All right. So what are we talking about today? We're talking about
Mental
mental
health.
health. Because
Yes.
it's Mental Health Awareness Month, and we're eking it in right at the end. And part of the reason it occurred to me, because truth be told to our listeners, it wasn't on our plan, because we kind of do that a lot throughout, different episodes and stuff. But part of the reason it came to me is because for those of you, 5 of you who listen to this podcast, if you don't already follow me on LinkedIn, go follow me. But I do a video series over there, right? That's more around the space of my professional life. And I just posted today an interview with a 15-year-old who, for her Girl Scout Gold Award project, wrote a book. And the book is called The Art of Mindfulness. People will be able to go see it on Amazon this summer. But it's an art book geared toward teens to help them kind of help them work through their anxiety and depression, right? So it's specifically for teen mental health. She's like giving it for free to the local teen center in her community. That's the Girl Scout part of it. She's going to be selling it on Amazon as well because all the proceeds will then also go to that same organization. So, but it just really kind of just reminded me, oh yeah, it's Mental Health Month. We should probably talk about mental health. So for me, what I'm hoping we can do is really be laser focused on teens and women. I feel like how to support your young person in mental health, and then also because I feel like women, and you, I would think, have an even better lens on this than I do, Jane, just because of your professional role, right? But
Right.
I just feel like we don't talk about mental health of women outside of like postpartum depression, right? I feel like that gets a lot of attention, but that's it. We don't talk about mental health of women. And so thinking about like misconceptions for both of those groups and then things that we can do to support for both those groups. That's what I'm thinking. What are you thinking?
Yeah, and we can definitely talk about that. But also we could talk about there's definitely early warning signs
Yes.
of different things as well. And
Yep. Love
so
that.
what we can do is talk about some of those things towards the end. And
Mm-hmm.
just some of the things to look for, or to pay attention to, because
Yeah.
they're not always our kids, they're not cookie cutters,
Yeah.
they're not going to
Exactly.
the same signs, warnings, conversations,
Yep.
and being able to identify some, concerning talk or behavior, and then to be able to then, talk to your kids
Yeah.
and get them the proper help, because
Yep.
not only is it not really talked about for women other than postpartum depression or menopause,
Yeah.
oh, she's going through the change and so it's
Right.
temporary, and and she'll just be crazy for a couple of years and then she'll be over it, or whatever people
So
say,
true.
because
Yeah.
it's just a thing and it will go away. But culturally, there are so many different cultures that it's not talked about,
That's right.
you
Yeah.
know and I work with a lot of people that have told me, like, we never talked about this stuff.
Yeah.
And now that our parents have passed away, like, we need to address it with my brother,
Yeah.
or whatever, and they're not having, they're not coping well with a death, or they don't
Yep.
know what to do, or just their behavior. I
Yeah.
have a friend that he has a 37-year-old sister that is just reckless,
Hmm.
and all over the place, and she torments the mom, and the mom is also feeding into it, and it's like,
Oh, wow.
you explain to him, like, look, this is mental health.
Yep.
This is not just, I want to be an idiot and do these things and not care. This is trauma. This is
That's right.
unresolved mental health issues and
Yeah.
self-care and everything else. And I said, and until they're ready, until they realize that they need to make the changes and not everybody else, you can't you're not going to be able to do anything. He's
That's
like, I
right.
feel like I'm hitting my head against a brick wall. I'm like, you are. You
Yeah.
really are. So, and coming to realizations like that. So, I
Yeah.
mean, that's kind of where my brain goes.
Yeah. No, no, no. I think you're absolutely right. So why don't we start with, how about we start with teens?
Okay.
And then we go to women. And then to your point, I love the idea of coming back with the early warning sign kind of things, right?
Yeah.
Like things to be looking for. And I hope our audience has appreciated listening to our thought process in terms of how we organize this conversation. You're welcome. Okay. So one of the things that, and the thing that this young lady on LinkedIn spurred for me was a couple of memories about um, my experiences as a school principal. And I can't remember if I've shared this before, but one of the things that really I think is a big misconception about teen mental health is that only adults can support them, right? I feel like that's a major misconception. And one of the things that Emmy shared about why she wrote her book is because part of the reason she feels like teens struggle is because it's not that there are a lack of resources, although we always need more, but that all the resources, or many of the resources, are designed where adults have to be involved, right? It's always about report, share, get an adult. And it reminded me, and I told this story on that video with her, that as a high school principal, I kind of got smacked into that misconception when I had a young man come to me and basically share that the night before, he had almost taken his own life, and that he had reached out to a friend. This was a kid who it would have been horrifically one of those nobody knew, right? Like, what the hell? He seems happy. He seems fine. There's been no red flags, no warning signs, etc. And so, and interesting enough, he and I weren't particularly close. Like, I knew him, but I didn't really know him.
Sure.
And so, but when he came to me and he shared that story, the reason he came to me is that his friends, basically pushed him and said, "You have to tell your parents you need help." And so he came to me because he didn't know how to talk to his parents about it. And
Right.
I didn't press him about the why, because the why at that time wasn't important. I can make some assumptions about, like you're talking about, right? That there may have been a kind of a stigma and all the things. But long story short is, he and I called his parents together, and they came in, and then we had a conversation. But all of that made me realize as a principal that we were doing the exact same thing that most places do, which is say, we're here for you. Tell an adult, tell an adult. If you have a friend who's struggling with anxiety or depression, tell an adult. And what it made me realize is we have to equip the kids to support each other. And that's terrifying, because we don't want the next 15-year-old to be the one who gets the call that I'm about to commit suicide and is carrying the burden of that. But the fact is, they're going to talk to each other before they talk to adults. So we can either equip them to know what to do when that happens, or pretend it won't happen and just say, tell an adult. So that was the big focus of my conversation with her. But it's also, I feel like, one of the big misconceptions we have to kind of get around, right? Is this idea of adults are the only ones who can help.
Right, right. Well, and I mean, most of the time, if you think about it, how much do the average teen, I would say, between 11 and 13 is pretty like hoodie on, hood over, don't talk to me, meh, that's
Yep.
the junior high school angst,
Oh
that,
yeah.
that most kids have. And I've definitely had that through all of my kids. It's just kind of like that routine. But it starts there, but it starts earlier than that,
Yeah.
because I was at so I did I opened up a workshop on Wednesday, or I'm sorry, Saturday. What day is it? I don't even know. On Saturday morning, for a group, a nonprofit called Marching Beauties, and they do this
Mhm.
really great work with girls of color, and they bring them in and they do these big workshops with them about confidence and mental health, and and all the things that
Yes. Love it.
usually typically the Black and brown communities don't talk a lot about, because again,
Right.
culturally, that's not something that is common. It's more of like it's a white thing. Like
Right.
it really is.
Right.
um, and so, in some cultures, it's like, no, 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 you don't have a problem. You just need to, do this, and you'll feel better, and stuff like that. And they've never really, a lot of cultures haven't put a lot of time or effort into it because they don't believe in it.
Right.
So, so getting together with these girls, and there was about 200 girls there. It
Oh
was
wow.
great, and they were from ages 13 to 17, and I opened it up. I'm going to be doing a 12-week long Zoom course with them to continue the learning about confidence. So we're going
Nice.
to be talking about their self-confidence. The part of the thing that I did on Saturday morning was a questionnaire,
Okay.
polling questions. I feel most confident in these scenarios: family, home, or home, school,
Right.
blah, 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 blah. work, whatever, social settings, and then and it's like um, good, good, below, or like
Yeah.
great, so or always, whatever. I can't remember what the questions were now, but anyways, they were polling questions, so I'm going to take that, and based off of their answers, I'm going to build that workshop around what
Nice.
they need, right?
Right.
And that's the other part of it, is what do they actually need?
Yeah.
Like, are we asking the right questions? Are we looking at the right things, and stuff like that? So I'm really excited to do this confidence,
Yeah, that's awesome.
12-week course, on just confidence, on different ways you can be confident and how you can be confident, how you can work on it. And it's going to be a lot of fun, but to have the opportunity to work with so many young ladies in that type of setting, and to be the leader in that confidence,
Absolutely.
journey. I'm really excited about that.
Yeah.
That's something that I never had an opportunity to do.
Right.
But like, we didn't have this stuff when we were younger
No.
at
No.
all.
Exactly.
Nobody
Yep.
talks about mental health. And so I think that's why for our age range, it's so important, because we were never talked to about it. And I love the fact that we are so focused on self-care and
Yep.
and mental health and all those things in school and outside of school now. It's such a trend. I hope it continues, because
I know.
we've always needed in this
Yeah.
transparency, and the aspect to be able to openly talk about it like we do, you
Yeah.
know. And that's kind of like where I'm at with when it comes to like the kids and stuff like that, is like really just being able to start the conversation at a younger age too. It doesn't have to be just when they're teens.
Exactly. Well, and be intentional. What I appreciate about you sharing about that experience that you're designing is being intentional early on in building the attributes that will help them if and when they begin to experience mental health, right? So if we're building this idea of confidence and self-empowerment, et cetera, early, could that be what helps combat, right? And I do feel like pandemic did this to schools, right? We're so focused on social emotional issues right now, which again, we should be, but it's a reaction,
Yeah,
right? It's not.
it's
Now, I
not a
know that
response. Yeah,
exactly. And I know lots of schools are doing lots of things to do what you and I are talking about, right? To get ahead of it and stop reacting. But right now there's a lot of reacting. And so how early on can we begin to develop? And I won't go too far down this road, but again, in my professional life, right, it's about looking and studying the brain research that shows that, learning and the social emotional aspect are kind of hand in hand, one and the same. And if you're doing one really well, you're building the others, right? So that's why a lot of schools and districts are going to like designing graduate or learner profiles in order to be able to do that. So I'll put a pin in that. So one of the things that I did was really quickly, because I have my own ideas about misconceptions we hold about teen mental health, but I went ahead and did a quick little chat GPT, right, search on it to just fine tune it. And it really supported what I already knew. And there were kind of three big ones. And I think these are really important to say out loud, because I think we do this as parents. I think we do it as grandparents, as aunts, uncles, friends, adults, teachers, leaders, all the things. And the three are this. I'll just say them really quickly out loud and then we can react to them. One is teenagers are just being dramatic, right? This idea that kind of like you talked about, like everybody expects teens to go through that hoodie, over the head kind of like phase. And because of it, we've almost conditioned ourselves that that's not a big deal. We don't need to pay
yeah,
attention to it, right? It's
yeah.
like
Like they're
it's
just
just
being a
them being
teenager.
teens. Exactly. So
Right.
teens are being dramatic. The second was, and this one's so powerful too, good grades mean good mental health, right?
Mhm.
Mistaking that if our kid is doing all the right things and getting the grades, then they must be fine. That's another one. And the last one was that teens don't experience real stress. And I've heard this too. I think it comes from I think I hear it in all adults, parents, teachers, it doesn't matter. But this idea that like their lives are so easy compared to what my life was, they don't even really know what stress is. So not acknowledging that in their teen world, things like academic pressure and social dynamics, the uncertainty of their future, all those things actually are causing real stress, right? It's not pretend stress, it's actual real stress. So those were the
Yeah.
three big misconceptions that I was like, yep, dead on.
You know what's funny is that, what you said about like they don't experience real stress. Teens
Yeah.
don't experience real stress. All children experience real stress. And
Amen.
let me something that, you know, I knew existed, but it was so powerful Saturday.
Yeah.
So I brought Jenny and I was like, do you want to participate? I'm sorry, the bird. Um, uh, do you want to participate? You know,
Somebody wants your attention or thinks you're full of shit. And I'm going with the second one.
stop. You don't know my bird. And hey, it's enough. Okay.
This is a lesson in parenting, everybody. Let's watch closely as Jane goes to her bird's cage and attempts to reason with it. Oh, look, you caved. Good job. Like any good parent.
Yeah,
Oh my
she's
God.
gonna join the podcast today.
I love that. She should always be here. How have you waited this long?
She's so cute.
Oh my God. Okay, go.
Sometimes when I'm talking, she thinks that she needs to talk too.
Mm. That's like
But
Amigo, our orange kitty. When you talk, he thinks you're
oh
talking to him, so he
yeah,
just
he's like,
speaks back. Exactly. Exactly. Okay. Saturday, Jenny went with you.
okay, yes. So we did this connections circle, and I thought it was really cool. They had all these things out on a blanket, and it was like it was all intention. So there's a group of 6 of us, and it's the leader of the group. I joined in, so there's 2 adults, and then the rest are all 13 or over. And we were sitting around, and it was really just talking about, you know, learning each other's names, and then learning how we connect, you know, and stuff like that. Um, there was a common thread, and I was just like, wow, this is huge because and I brought it up, and because we were talking about an experience where we felt uncomfortable, or we did something to improve the situation, right? We
Okay.
got advice from somebody, blah blah blah. So I brought up a story about how when I was in my 30s, you know, working for a company, and I was being bullied by one of my coworkers, like legitimately bullied every day. Every
Okay.
day he was doing something, saying something, putting me down, whatever. And it was really starting to bother me.
Yeah.
And to the point, all right, to the point where I was breaking down at work.
Oh,
You know,
wow.
yeah, I was like, it was a lot. And so I went to my boss, and it was just really bothering me. And I went to my boss and I said, look, you know, I'm having a real hard time working with this person because of these things. And he gave me this advice of, you know, don't let anybody stand in your way of success. And you know, and I took that, and that's all he really said. He's like, don't let anybody stand in your way of success. He was like, he's not going anywhere. You know, yes, you know, if it gets bad, we'll, you know, or if it gets worse, whatever, we'll deal with him, you know.
Yeah.
But in that moment is when I realized I have the control over the trajectory of the outcome of this.
Yeah.
And it was me that was standing in my way of success. I was allowing him to change my mindset, you know,
Yeah.
and all those things. And so that's the story I shared. And then every single other person shared a story about being bullied at
Oh, wow.
a very young age, right? They're all 13, they're, you know, or older. So they're talking about grade school. You guys, this stuff starts in grade school,
Oh,
even as
yeah.
early as kindergarten. I
Yep.
mean, I remember when Tyler was in school and in kindergarten, he got suspended from kindergarten because he was being bullied and got so mad that he threw a chair across the room, and he got suspended.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, I get that part, you know, but he's also autistic. He also has ADHD. Nobody did anything to protect him
Yeah.
against this, and then he got punished when
Yep.
he reacted to the stimulus.
Yep.
And what are we showing our kids?
Yeah.
What are we doing? I mean, I saw a post, now I don't know if this is true or not, but there was a picture of a teacher and a kindergartner or something like
Right.
that. Little kid. And he said he got suspended for telling the teacher that her breath smelled like shit. Now,
Oh, wow.
the picture of the teacher, her teeth are rotting out of her mouth.
Right.
So yeah, he could have been nicer and not said shit, but at the same time, he's letting her know, like, hey, you know, you've got a problem going on, and you're right in my face.
Right.
It's not comfortable. And she has these teeth rotting out of her mouth, and she's totally upset. Like, what, you know, like, that kind of stuff. And I felt like he was being bullied. He was being
Right.
punished for being truthful. And that's what we're telling our kids to do, is speak the truth. So it's like this reverse, like we're almost putting more damage on it when
Yeah.
these situations happen. And so I think we need to become, as adults, more aware of how just the littlest things will affect the children, because every single one of those girls in this group on Saturday was so meek and quiet,
Yeah.
so meek, including Jenny.
Yeah.
And she's been bullied too. And
Yep.
so it's like, this makes sense on why all of these young ladies are just so recluse. And so it was like, no, we need to like, let's say it out loud and let's speak louder and let's
Yep.
be more confident. And it's that confidence that gets taken away through that bullying. And
Yeah.
it's a social aspect. We get bullied as adults. We get bullied during teen and young years, in marriages and relationships. There's
Yeah.
bullying everywhere. And it's like, that's where it starts. That's where it
Yeah.
stems, in the social aspect. And how do we maneuver through all of this?
Well, it's interesting that you say that because I have, I think to your point, right? Like there's so many things there we could unpack, but we don't have, an indefinite amount of time. But I will say, when I think about that example of that post that you said, and I appreciate that you were like, maybe it's true, maybe it's not. Like we all know, we only
Whatever.
know what we know. But certainly the scenario exists in real life where the adult is, in a power position because the adult is always in a power position by
Yep.
default.
100%.
Um, and kind of constraining that young person because of that power dynamic, right? Because I look at that and I think to myself, even if it wasn't true, right? Even if she had the freshest breath ever, I'm thinking to myself, if a 5-year-old says those words to you, a 5-year-old is being taught that, right? And so I again, like to think that they would get a hefty consequence makes no sense at all because of course school is for learning, right? And school
Right.
is for learning in a
Yeah,
socialized way because
yeah.
all of us have different experiences at home.
Mhm.
And my last reflection on what you said is that we have a high school friend. You and I have chatted about him because I really want him on the podcast, and
Yes.
I think he's finally going to carve out some time. But we saw him last week and spent some time with him and his 14-year-old who is homeschooled. And a big part of the reason we'll talk about this when we talk with him, but a big part of the reason his son is homeschooled is because he had a realization early on that here I am building a certain set of values and beliefs and understandings in my son, and then he goes to school
Yep.
and he gets all of that other stuff. And I have to decide, like, do I, what's better for him, right? In the end, what's better for him to get all of that? Like you said, every kid who goes to school is going to deal with bullying. Every single one of them. That's the truth. That's just human nature. It's how it happens.
Yep.
Um, as an example, right? And every kid who goes to any kind of education outside of their home is going to have other adults in their world now who influence their thinking. There are a lot of pros to that, by the way, right? Because we
Yes.
can think of we can think of kids who are homeschooled who maybe are getting messaging that terrifies us. So it's like there are a lot of pros to that. But to your point, like as parents, like we can't make assumptions. And I'm going back to that misconception about if my kid's getting good grades, they must be fine, right? Like we have to constantly be checking in, which leads me to like, what are some of the things that parents and adults, not just parents, teachers, leader, everybody can do? And there's a lot of them, and we've talked about them over time on our podcast. But one of the things you're picking up on is teaching, right? Building a young person's capacity in terms of confidence, building their empowerment, their sense of empowerment, building their understanding of even you started with the example of you at work, this idea that, oh, wait a second, I actually have some control here, and I need to figure out how to exert my control to remove this issue that I'm having with this person because I'm never going to control them, right? So
Right.
what do I do to control it? So all of that kind of wraps itself around the ideas of active listening, really listening when your young people speak, really paying attention to the nuances and dynamics of the things they're experiencing, encouraging that and communication, like being the one who says out loud, like, listen, I'm parenting for the first time or I'm parenting for the fifth time and I'm realizing like I don't know a lot about mental health stuff. So I've been doing some looking on my own and this is stuff I'm learning. Like, what do you think about this? What do you see in your friends? What, because sometimes we know this with teens. If we can get them to talk about something that's happening to someone else, they're more likely to then talk about what's happening to them, right? Because they're going to gauge us. Like, how's my mom or dad going to react to me saying that my friend over here is experiencing anxiety? Because that's going to help me decide if I'm going to say out loud that I am, right? So active listening, that kind of stuff. Those are some of the kind of day-to-day ways, right, that we can be really thinking and thoughtful about our the mental health of our young people. What would you add to that? And I know you said earlier you had some thoughts about like early warning signs, especially with young
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, well, when it comes to back to the confidence thing, I was doing research for that because, it's obviously a different age group that I'm working with here.
Mhm.
Teens, you have to be intentional with every age group. But you have to be careful because, there's adult topics that you don't want to drag in. And then there's, age
Absolutely.
preference and everything else. But what I came up with is self-confidence, the three main underlying things that we need to have self-confidence in is our self-abilities. Like, do I accept and trust and have a sense of control in my life? What are my abilities? What can I do?
Yeah.
And then self qualities, your strengths and weaknesses well enough and have positive views of yourself. Understanding what your strengths and weaknesses are and how to overcome those weaknesses with your strengths and stuff like
Yep.
that. And then third is self judgment. You set a realistic expectation and goals, communicate assertively, and can handle criticism.
Yeah.
That's where we come with rejection and positive feedback or critical feedback, and how to
Right.
handle it and stuff like that. So it's really those three things: our abilities, our qualities, and our judgment.
Yep.
And are we able to make our own decisions? So
That's
many
right.
people don't have confidence in making their own decisions. And that's where you get the procrastination and and sometimes, like, I function off of procrastination when it comes to projects because I like
Right.
go in and like boom, 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 get it all done.
Yep.
That's just how I work because I handle all the little fires until I
Yeah.
need to do that. And then I'm like, boom, now it's time to do this. So it gives me, I know my capacity and I know how to work that. But before I figured that out, I would get overwhelmed,
Oh, heck yeah.
stressed out and depressed and like, how do I do this? And and it takes time for us to figure out how we function the best.
Yeah.
So being able to talk to these young ladies about their abilities, their qualities, and their judgment is going to be
Yep.
so cool in bringing it all the way around and closing that loop on how they can better, do these things in different scenarios. Because it's not like you're confident and then you're confident in everything. We all know
Exactly.
that we have different roles that we play, and like I said earlier when I was talking about, those questions, like I brought up the questions: where do you feel most confident, you are most confident, with family, school, around new people, with friends, or your team, because a lot of
Right.
them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just taking those polling questions and then going, okay, so you're comfortable with your team and stuff like that, but not at home.
Right.
Those are signs to different scenarios that they can then get those tools and help themselves work on these things. And I invited all the mothers,
Yeah. Nice.
guardians, to join their daughters, because I'm like, look, these are things that you guys need too,
Yeah.
because we all have confidence. And they were like, yes, thank you, like all the. So it's
Yeah.
really cool because I am going to be doing a broader view
Yeah.
on all those young ladies and women and stuff like that. So it's really cool. But that being said, some signs of mental illness in teens. So
Right.
I'm just going to kind of read them off, and each one of them has like a little bit of a definition, and different scaling. But these are the things: sleep, lack of sleep, or too much, a lot of sleep.
Yep.
All of a
Yep.
sudden they're sleeping all the time.
Yeah.
Alcohol and drug use, that's one thing. Change in eating habits.
Yeah.
It could be excessive eating. It could be not eating at all. It
Yep.
could be weird, like there's plenty of eating disorders out there. Avoiding friends and social life. Like all of a
Mm.
sudden they're like, no, I'm not doing it.
Yep.
Self-harm, we all know that that's a big one. Rising levels of anxiety, like all of a sudden things that didn't really bother them before, like now all of a sudden is like not something that they're comfortable with or they want to avoid.
Right.
Change in school performance, depression. Depression looks like a lot of different things, so you really
Yeah.
have to like look deeper into that. Irritability, that's a big one.
Yeah.
Difficulty focusing, like even just at home,
Yeah.
doing chores or whatever, they're scattered, they're all over the place. Low energy, lack of motivation, withdrawing from friends and family. Again, that's avoiding friends and social life.
Yep.
Extreme moodiness, excessive worry, changes in appetite, social isolation, poor hygiene, and then loss of weight. One thing that I will say that I've had experience with is with my daughters,
Hmm.
you probably know where I'm going with this. When puberty hits, there's definitely mood changes and stuff
Oh
like that.
yeah.
We all get that as women, right? But there's other things to look for. Those and see, no. Hey Cora, what's up? Um those things like highs and lows. I started noticing that with one of my daughters, like it was weird. Like all of a sudden, like she would be singing really loud. Okay, she's angry with
This
me.
is also the pet edition, by the way.
Oh my god! Get over here! Get over here!
She's for everybody to know, Jane's right now throwing the bird outside.
I
She
am not. I'm
is letting him.
watching her. She's having
Oh,
playtime.
my version is better that you just threw her out the door and was like, "You're out."
You know
Sorry,
what? You know
he's
what?
out.
She's actually gotten out twice, and I got her out of the neighborhood. She was the last time she was in a tree about a block down, and it was dusk, and I heard her. And then Devin. This is when Devin was here. I pull up in the little alley, and I know she's in that tree. I'm the crazy bird lady, right?
Of course.
So I'm looking in the tree, and I see her. She's like in between, like two, like
Yeah.
this little opening, and I could see her, and I'm like, Rio, get down here right now. And she's like, meh. And I'm like, I'm not kidding. Here she flies out of the tree on top of the car. I'm like, get in here. And I put her on my shoulder and I get in the car. I'm sure the neighbors were like, you've got to be freaking kidding me.
Seriously, I can't believe the freaking bird listened to you. That's
Yes.
hilarious.
Oh, she does. No, that I am her mate. Like that's why
Oh
she
my
gets so
God.
cocky, is because she doesn't want anybody else talking to me because
Right.
I'm hers. And so she gets jealous. Yeah, this
That
is my
is,
life.
you
This
know
is
what? That's going to be a whole other episode,
my
how to
life
deal with
partner.
jealous mates. Okay. All
Yeah,
right. We'll talk about that later. So
this is my
you were
life
talking about though your girls and going through like
Yeah,
puberty.
so but I noticed like you just pay attention to patterns. It's all about
That's right.
patterns, and breaks in those patterns.
Yeah.
Notice one of my daughters, like right around menstrual time, it was like, oh, it was a roller coaster. It was
Yeah.
high, singing, dancing, loud, obnoxious, blah blah blah, and then it was like boom down, and I'm like,
Wow.
that's a lot, and so like I was like, all right, but that was just at the beginning. Now it's kind of
Yeah.
evened out. It was just, it's like that,
Yeah.
but those are signs, those
Yeah.
highs and lows, those. I was like, is she bipolar? Like like
Seriously, right?
yeah, like because it was bad, and I'm
Yeah.
like, it was stressing me out. I'm like, I think I gotta take her to the doctor. Like
Yeah.
now that it's evened out, I'm like, okay, all right,
But
but
that's, oh, go ahead. Sorry. Sorry.
but paying attention,
Yeah.
is the big thing, because I haven't always paid attention. My oldest daughter came to me when she was oh god, like 15, and she was explaining, which I had no idea about. I was naive, and this is, a while ago. Um um Disassociative, like she was
Oh, yeah.
outside of her, like she was watching
Yeah.
herself, and I'm like,
Yeah.
what the fuck do you mean?
Yeah.
Was like, what? Like I'd never heard of that before. And
Yeah.
it was like, it's 15 years ago or whatever. And so, or yeah, probably 10, 12 years ago. I never heard of that before, and so I'm like, what, what do I do? And she's like,
Yeah.
it's weird and blah, blah. And I mean, and got, she started going to a doctor, stuff like that. But it was so, I was scared as a
Yeah.
mom, but we still had to handle it,
That's right.
so us as parents, it is scary.
Yeah.
And then we think, oh, it's a reflection on us, and I don't want to say my kid has a problem, and all those things. But guess what, guys? We're human. We can't
Yep.
control everything that we have or don't have. It's scary, it's life, and we just have to handle it appropriately, and
Well,
that.
and I think what I hear you saying is honestly like you being, I love that you said focus on patterns, right? Look for anomalies, things are that are outliers, right? Like things that are extremes.
Is, yeah.
Um, and to your point then, like the key is that when you are concerned, talk to someone, right? Like don't, it's when we don't listen to our gut that I think that we get ourselves in real big trouble, both for our own mental health. We're about to transition to women here in just a second, but also for our kids. So when you, like you said, when your daughter comes to you and says that, when you see the extreme highs and lows with one of them with their cycles, like, when you're concerned, talk to someone. And I do want to point out a couple things. Everything you listed would be easy to go fall into that first misconception about teens just being teens. It's just being a
Yep.
teenager.
All of
So
them.
what you really want to look for is A, whenever you're concerned, ask the questions, right? Say the things out loud. And B, like you said, look for kind of trends and patterns and outliers. And the only other one I want to lift up before we switch to women is you mentioned self-harm. And the reason and you said, I think most people are fully aware of that. However, I think sometimes we don't notice the warning signals of that. And so one of the warning signals I wanted to lift up is that, you have a child who changes how they dress
Yep.
drastically and suddenly, right? Suddenly they're trying to cover more of their body. That
Yep.
can be an indicator of a lot of things. It could be simply style choice. All of a sudden, everybody's wearing sweats like that. It could be as simple and innocent as that, but it can also be that they are doing something to their bodies, which is, we know at the core of that is oftentimes a sense of lack of control, and harming themselves, cutting themselves is a way that they exhibit control. That's one. There's many reasons. We won't go into all of them, but anyway, I just wanted to lift that up because I think that, for you and I, that feels really common. But for somebody who's listening, in case you're like, oh, okay, that's common. And how would you know? Well, you would know if, again, your kid suddenly is changing how they dress. And then for me, I think it's about like, not again being like, gosh, suddenly you're wearing long sleeves. Let me see your arms, right? But more
Yeah.
of like paying
Accusing.
attention and trying to really see when they do, show a body part. Just be on the lookout for little things like that. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I'm thinking that we have about 30 minutes left that we could shift into women
Okay.
because I know we wanted to talk about both today. And so I'll kick us off because same idea. I just wanted to think about like what are the biggest misconceptions about women's mental health. And as I was looking at these, I wanted to like throw something through my computer because they are so common, and yet so just so narrow-minded. So the big three are women are naturally more emotional. This idea that when a woman is exhibiting certain characteristics or symptoms or whatever you want to call them, that we chalk it up to, well, that's just women. They tend to be more emotional anyway. The second is that mental health is a sign of weakness, right? So that might be a stereotype or a stigma that keeps us from externalizing how we're feeling and reaching out to others and trying to get ourselves some support because we see it as a sign of weakness. And the last one kind of ties both of those together with a bow, which is motherhood should be blissful, right? That prior to, I would say in the last 5 to 10 years, we've seen a shift with social platforms that open the window to the fact that motherhood is not all bliss. But there was a period of time, and it still continues to exist where we only talked about the blissfulness, right? Somebody we know gets pregnant, we think, oh, it's so beautiful, you're going to love it. And all those things are true, but we don't always then say, and you're going to be exhausted and you're going to question everything. And that's all normal also, right? Like that's
Right.
okay. And get yourself a network. So those three were the big kind of misconceptions.
Yeah. I I want to say I love those misconceptions. But
You love them for how they are so prevalent.
yes, yeah. I mean, I love them because they're so true. And the first one that you said that women are just more emotional. Let me just tell you something. This is for
We
the
are. We
this is
really
for the
are.
men out there.
Okay. Okay. Let's hear it.
If you see me crying, it's because I'm not killing you.
Oh,
Like I
oh,
cry out of frustration when I get so like if I that's my last resort
yeah.
of frustration
Yep.
is the tears because that's what I need to release before I kill somebody because I'm so like be glad I'm crying right now because I would be so much more bitchier
If I were.
if I were crying. I'm saving you trauma right now.
Yep.
I'm walking away and I have the tears and I'm
Yep.
going to collect myself because if I don't, I might lose a gasket or blow a
Yep.
gasket. Like I love how people just say, oh, women just are more emotional, they cry. And no, I'm not a big crier. Not all women are criers.
Right.
But when I cry, it's either I'm really sad, like somebody died, or she's pissed and you
Yeah.
should probably just get out of the way. Like
Yep.
just move because it's not going to be good for you. You know?
Well, and I think it's also like this idea that again, like you said, women, are you going to cry? Are you going to whatever? I also think, and I heard this great line, and it was in a Meg Ryan movie a million years ago, where she's like a lieutenant, in the military, and her men go against her basically. And at one point she's trying to figure out what to do. They're in like a battle
Is it
situation,
like
and
Sergeant Benjamin or something like that?
no, I don't think it's that one. This was a more, because that was a more, if I remember, I can't remember. But anyway, but she starts to cry, and one of them is like, "Are you fucking kidding me? Like, you're crying right now." And she was like, crying is a reaction to stress. This is stress. And it's that idea that like tears can be an overflow of any emotion,
Yes.
right? Tears, to your point, for you, it's
Happiness
frustration. It
or
can be
happiness.
joy, it can be
Yeah.
love, it can be sadness, but that was always for me like that idea of literally this is just stress overflowing for me right now, right?
Yeah.
So, but we've done this, right, to our, not, I shouldn't say we've done it to ourselves, with society or whatever you want to call it. We've done this by building this misconception that if somebody cries, that means they're weak. If somebody cries, it means they can't be in charge. If somebody, so yes, I love that you surface that one as like yours are almost always that you're overflowing with frustration, and now you need to step back because you might die. But that idea that in general, right, like women are just emotional, and it's tied to our menstrual cycles, it's
Yep.
tied to all the things, right? So but I think those are, I love that we're saying them out loud, because I think that we have to start calling them out, right? Whether you're in a professional environment, whether you're on a social platform, no matter where you encounter them, we have to start calling them out.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I love the fact that um more recently, I would say within the last 2 years, you're right. Like a lot more people are being a little bit more realistic on social media
Yeah,
because so many years, so they look just so perfect
yeah,
and blah blah blah. And then next thing you know, like they're in the news for killing each other, and you're like, what?
exactly.
Like
What happened?
what happened? Oh my gosh, they're so perfect. Oh, because it was a facade. They're not
Right.
really like that. I was watching a documentary where this woman was like just horribly mistreating her children, and everything online was staged. Like they were being starved to death. They were
Oh
being,
wow.
oh yeah, and there's a whole documentary on it on I think it's Netflix or something like that. I'll have to send it to you. But it was like this where she just had this like perfect life on Instagram and stuff like that. And then her and her husband end up separating because she like the group they were with, the church or whatever, like made him feel like he was a pedophile because he
Oh
looked at
wow.
him once, and so they like bad just like beat him down to the point where he thought he was just like dirt. And then
Yes.
she had the kids, and she was in the meantime doing all these videos and forcing them to do these promos and crap like that. And in the meantime she was not bathing them, not,
Yeah.
the only time they would get food and bathe is when they had a photo shoot kind of.
Yeah.
It
Yep.
was insane. And
Yeah.
finally one of her sons, escapes from the house and goes to a neighbor's house, and finally gets the police involved and all that,
I see. That's what, yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about
oh,
now. I knew if you kept going, I'd finally
it was
trigger
like
it.
in
Okay.
Arizona or something like
Yeah.
that, or yeah,
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
desert.
Yeah.
I was just
Wasn't she the one who was like part of her shtick was that she was like she was teaching everybody else how to punish their kids?
yes,
That
yes,
was her. Yeah. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, what the fuck? And
Yeah.
so I watched the whole thing, and I was just like, oh, these poor kids, totally traumatized. But she obviously has mental health issues.
Exactly.
Obviously.
Severe.
But please, she's also really good at hiding it and being
Yes.
able to manipulate other people. Like she
Yep.
really manipulated her husband, and I mean, it was bad. So those are signs of mental health issues.
That's right.
Extreme control,
Yep.
extreme, like, these things, and it's all connected. And these are the
Yeah.
things that we need to pay attention to in other people, our
That's
friends,
right.
are, like, how do we help them? How do we have
Yep.
conversations?
Well, and I wonder, it's funny that you say that, because when you go back to the top of the show where we talked about misconceptions around teens, you could replace those with women. Like it's all right. Just like you can replace the signs, the early warning signs can be similar, but it doesn't even matter like which group you're in. But I think that one of the, things I also want to lift up about the kind of why we would even spend time, obviously, because part of our podcast really focus is on women, but um, in terms of some quick statistics, 1 in 5 women usually report experiencing a mental health condition each year. That's the ones who say it out loud. That's the ones who actually go and get some kind of help for it. 1 in 5 women. Women are twice as likely to experience depression over men. I think the statistic was around like 12% of women in any given year here in this country, right? We're talking about the US. Also more likely to experience disorder or anxiety disorders than men. About 23% of women report having that. And again, these statistics are low because they're only the ones that women are where women are actually saying it out loud. And then, of course, the one that I think is more common is this idea of postpartum depression. So it's important for us to have these conversations because it tends to happen more in women than men, but that also then feeds the misconceptions, right? That, oh, well, that's because women are weak. That's because women are emotional. That's because, right? Yeah.
Well, biologically, women are wired differently than men because we
Yes,
are the caretakers. So, just for
exactly.
one quick example, it's scientifically proven that during sleep, women's brains only shut down 10% because we need to, or only 10% of their brain shuts down or whatever, because we need to be able to listen for babies,
Right.
always on protective mode. Men shut down 70% of their brain when they sleep. And
That's
that's,
about right.
yeah. And so they're getting more sleep, they're getting better sleep naturally,
Right.
biologically. We don't get that.
Yeah.
It's just in our genetic makeup and nature wise. And so just that by itself, sleep is so important to mental
Yeah.
health. And the fact that we don't even sleep as well as men, come on.
You know
Like,
what? It's one more way we're being robbed.
I'm
God bless America.
just saying, I'm just saying. But like that's just a prime example of how, it's so easy to just say,
That's
oh,
right.
women or whatever. Well, let's look at the biological makeup of men and women,
Yeah.
and what women biologically have to go through
Yep.
just to live
Exactly.
compared to a man. It's
Yeah.
much different. And so it's just like we have, and socially we have different standards and stuff like that. But you know what I'm learning? The more um the I don't know. I don't know why just all of a sudden I've noticed a lot more mental health and a lot of similarities between men and women when it comes to social status,
Yeah.
weight, what you look like, how you feel, what makes you feel better, and all of those things and stuff like that. Women, I feel like for me, I'm getting older and I'm appreciating different things in life
Yeah.
than when I was younger. And I think that, and I'm actually liking getting older and stuff like that. But there's a lot of men that hit that like midlife crisis that go, oh my God, I'm
That's
getting
true.
old. Oh, I want a hot chick. So they go and get that 20-year-old, 25-year-old girlfriend and try to like revamp their thing. And with women, we're more like, I want to be able to do things on my own. I don't want
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to enjoy what I'm doing and I want to enjoy my spouse, but if my spouse is going through a midlife crisis and wants some hot chick, like, like what, and so there's these things where we go through different phases in our lives too.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa, what am I, what's going on?
Well,
But
you have to work really hard to be paired up, right? Like you said, a man and a woman for a long period of time. And I'll tell you, after being on the road last week, I don't know why, but one of the things I really noticed was when I saw a couple who was my age or older, right? So and it was clear that they were the same age or close to the same age, right? And they were together. And I just every single time it makes me smile because I just think to myself, like, you've really, whether you just got married a year ago or whether you've been married for 30 years, you've really like come to kind of terms with what it means to be at that phase in your life and to welcome and want a partner who's at the same phase, like you said, versus somebody who's going to help you bring back your youth, right? By
right,
turning the clock backwards. I just thought, and then I was like, well, it's kind of sad that this strikes me as really sweet and special because it should be the norm, but it's not, right? Because
right,
we
right.
tend to not stick around like that. So, but
Yeah,
yeah, I'm with you 100%,
yeah,
100%.
exactly. It's really refreshing to find somebody that is on the same page as you. And
Exactly.
I'm actually kind of dating somebody right now, and
Oh,
they're a couple years younger than me, but they're in the same mindset. Like it's
right.
like, I'm done dealing with all the BS and the
Yep.
stuff. I just want to enjoy somebody's company,
Exactly.
genuinely, which I don't enjoy
She's
real.
like, I'm here. I'm
I'm
here.
here.
You're talking
What are
about
you, what are
me.
you talking about? You're cheating other people. Oh, cheating on me. See? Jealous. I
Wow.
mentioned I'm seeing
I
somebody.
think you have a codependent relationship with your bird, but we're gonna leave that right
I
there. All
think
right,
no,
really quickly.
she has a codependent relationship with me.
Can one person be codependent or do they both have to be codependent? Anyway, a different episode. So ways for us to think about then as women taking care of our mental health. Like you said earlier, like it's part of why we spend time almost every episode or awfully close to it talking about prioritizing self-care because we know that when women take care of their bodies through exercise, through engaging in things that you enjoy doing, through things that aren't for someone else but are just for yourself, that's a good way for you to like promote your own positive mental health. But another one, and we can only talk about this for a minute today because of our time, but I know we've talked about coming back to this. Another one is this idea of setting boundaries, and we value your unique
Yep.
perspective on that. Obviously, seeking professional help when you feel like something is wrong, do not follow the typical woman line of thinking, which is, oh, it's fine, I'm fine. It's just leave it alone, it'll go away, right? Actually seek some help for yourself. And then having that network, right? Building connections with others. The more isolated we are in these emotions, the worse off we are. And quite frankly, if we're not surrounding ourselves with people where we can say out loud to them, gosh, I just feel like I can't get out of bed. Gosh, if we can't say it out loud, they're not the right people. Maybe they're good superficial friends, but we need the people who we can actually say it out loud and not be worried about what they'll think. And then lastly, practicing mindfulness and meditation. It kind of goes along with the self-care thing, but there's a lot of research around both of those and really taking time every single day to do those. So those are some quick things to think about. But I would love for you to remind us, Jane, about your kind of unique take on setting boundaries. It ties to what you were talking about earlier in terms of like your workplace thing and control. But go ahead.
Yeah, the boundaries aspect is really just, so many times we hear, and I mean, this is what I've heard ever since I learned about boundaries was boundaries are set for other people, on what you'll take from them and what you won't and blah 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 and you're crossing my boundary and that wasn't working for me. That wasn't working for me in my personal life, especially with my mother. She always was always crossing my boundaries. And it took a Christmas, the last time I spent a holiday with them, it took that holiday to make me finally realize that it wasn't boundaries. I can't control other people's behavior. I just
Yep.
can't. And this actually was right around the same time as this don't let anybody stand in your way of success. And that's what linked it for me actually was that conversation because I was like, I can't control this person. And it was his mission to make me miserable. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn or anything. It's because I was a better coach than him. I came
Mm,
in, I took it seriously. I
yeah.
learned it. I wanted to be the best. And he was half-assing his stuff and everything else, and he knew it. And so that was his big qualm with me. I'm
Right.
so sorry about the bird. It's giving me anxiety right now.
I'm glad you felt like you could say it out loud to us. That's good. Yes.
I will never lie about my anxiety.
She is on fire today, so it's funny. It's fine.
It
It's
is.
fine. And like I said, it's the petty issues.
Okay, so I just wish I had a mute button for her. Um, so the boundary aspect was I couldn't control anybody. I couldn't control him. So I
Yep.
needed to learn what my boundaries were for myself and what I was going to put up with and what I wasn't. And so the boundaries were more
Yeah.
for me. And that's what
Yep.
really changed the trajectory of everything in my world. You
Yeah.
know, um, I have a great relationship with my mother. We've talked about that before. It's
Yeah. Oh, it's so great.
because we
Exactly.
don't have one. You know, and so it's just one of those things.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna let her out real quick because she's not
Okay.
here.
No, but I think to kind of sum that up, right? What's really important about it is really shifting. When we say set boundaries, we don't mean controlling what other people will and won't do. We mean for setting boundaries that are here's what I will and won't do, right? I can't control what you're going to do. Here's if I don't like what you're going to do, then I have to set a boundary for myself in terms of will I spend time with you? Will I create that opportunity? Will I whatever, right? I think that's so powerful. And I definitely know it's going to be, as we're kind of wrapping up today, it's going to be on our list of potential workshops that we are designing and working toward being ready to bring forward to people because we are, so let's kind of wrap up that and maybe let's foreshadow a little bit of what we're hoping to do. But
Mhm.
So, we've talked about teen mental health today. We've talked about the mental health of women. We really just did a quick kind of cursory overview of that. Again, because I feel like we spread those throughout all of our conversations, but we wanted to make sure that we acknowledged that it's Mental Health Awareness Month. So we will post this by the end of the month, which means by
Yes.
Friday. Post this by the end of the month. And I always actually love doing that from the perspective of like, yes, it's great that we have this month where we all focus on it, but the fact is mental health is an issue every single day for people all
Yes.
over the world. And so thinking about it as we move out of May is also super important. So let's talk a little bit now then about like what we're hoping to do, right? Like this is today's episode. When we post this, will be episode 40, which
Woo!
on one hand seems like so many. On the other hand is like, okay, we've been at this for about a little over about a year and a half, almost a year and a half. So, but I feel really good about that number because
Yeah.
again, we've said many times, like this is not our day job, right? This is something we do as a passion outside of that. And so I'm super excited about this being number 40 for us. And because of it, we are thinking about, like, yes, in the scope right now of having day jobs, that we really want to build off of this podcast to create opportunities to take the expertise that we have, along with the rapport that we have and the humor we bring and all the fun stuff to different audiences in different ways. And one of those is this idea of being able to really design customized workshops for folks, right? And we're thinking about it in terms of like, if you are in charge of a women's group, if you are head of the PTA, if you are in a workplace situation where you have a poor culture, like there are a lot of ways that we can bring some of the lessons that you've heard over these 40 episodes to bear in your context. And I love, Jane, that you were giving the example of the confidence workshop you're doing on your end professionally, because it's a great example of how we engage in this work by customizing and designing based on the particular audience, not kind of generic canned types of things, right? And also, workshop type style settings, but also keynotes, right? Because, keynotes are designed to be motivational and inspiring and all the things, which I think people have seen us do over the last 40 episodes. But
Right.
we are both also educators at heart, and we know the research on adult learning. And so we also know a keynote can't just be about making me feel good and then I walk away. Otherwise, it goes away as soon as you walk out the door, but rather a deep learning experience that helps people kind of grab onto something that becomes an anchor for them as they move forward from those experiences. So, what would you add?
And I would say, like, just the example that I used of the 12
Yes,
weeks afterwards, we can do that too, because it's not
yep,
about that one day, because
that's right.
most people retain about 30% of that. And it's
Exactly.
all about revisiting and the follow-up. And so, and especially with businesses, it's like you got to work from the top down, because it's not, if something stinks, if the fish stinks, it's, the head and the tail stink.
That's
So,
right.
you always start at the head, because that's where most of the direction's coming from, is
Yep,
from top. And so if it's starting there, we need to find out, because if you start in the middle or at the end, it's never going to get better.
that's right.
It's still rotten at the top. And
That's
so
right.
it's doing these one-day workshops is a great way to gather information
Yep,
and come back with a specialized program
that's
to
right.
really help the individuals and or departments or whoever it
Yes,
is, leadership, get through what they're trying to get through, and then get to those goals that they're working towards. And
that's right.
that's what I've been doing for years, and I love it.
I
So
love it.
um, we want to do that. We want to get together and do that and be a dynamic duo and have a lot of fun with it. We're
So
already
we're
a
going
dynamic duo.
to, we're going to start just kind of putting it out here via our actual episodes like we are right now and putting it forward to people and encouraging people to reach out to us if it grabs a hold of you and you think, oh my gosh, I would love to have you come talk about blank with blank group, right? And we're going to begin to build that kind of informally at first. And then as we get some traction, right, to formalize it a little bit more. And so keep an eye out, right, for that kind of information from us. But other than that, I think it's time for final thoughts because we're coming up on an hour here. So I'll go back to really quickly, again, this idea that I think the most important thing for us to take away from this conversation around mental health is that we have to be able to say things out loud, right? Both for our own mental health, but also to encourage the people that we love in our world around us, our kids, our spouses, our colleagues, etc., to feel comfortable saying their truth out loud as well. Because you never know when you create that space when it's gonna be that really critical moment where you're gonna help somebody who's actually in a really desperate situation and you didn't even know it. Final thought for you, Jane.
Yeah. I love that, and I mean I would echo all of that. And the aspect of just being proactive, you
Yeah.
know, this is the time to be proactive. You
Yeah.
know, we are reactive to so many things in our lives, and to be able to put some thought into it and look forward, and even in ourselves. You
Yep.
know, I had to come to a realization earlier in this year. I had seasonal depression. I've never had that before, and I was
Yeah.
in a funk. You know, I
Yeah.
had never been in a funk before.
Yep.
And it was hard because I'm
Yeah.
like, gosh, like this
Yep.
is what it's like. This blows, you know?
Yeah.
And there was nothing like I literally kind of just sat in my room for a couple of weeks, you
Yeah.
know, and just kind of hung out by myself and was
Yep.
just bleh, you know,
Yeah.
on any off time that I had. And it took a minute to shake it off. And but if I wasn't paying attention and really intentional on shaking it off and like really wanting to, I would still be there.
Yeah.
I would totally still
Yep.
be, because it was so easy just to exist. And the big part of it that we all need to understand is it's easy to exist, it takes effort to live.
That's right.
And I had to remind myself of that. Like you're not happy about anything because you're not doing shit. And I was
That's
like,
right.
oh yeah, that's right. Okay.
I like that. It's easy to exist. It takes work to live. I love that. I think that's a great, and I will say, you remind me, I have a girlfriend from college who has seasonal depression disorder, and I did an episode with her on one of my podcasts, my previous podcast worlds, but we'll add it to the list for like late next fall when people
Yeah,
tend to go into that cycle, so we can talk a little bit about and maybe bring her on. But
yeah.
all right, so it's easy to exist. You have to work hard to live. We're gonna wrap it up right there, you guys. Make sure you like, subscribe, share all the things. We're hoping to reach 6 people in this episode versus our
Woo!
typical 5. That's our hope.
Yes.
So get it out there, share it with all the people, and we'll see you next time. Peace out.
Bye.